Nearly 36 years ago, Canadian Ben Johnson earned a gold medal and set a world record at the 1988 Summer Olympics. He crossed the 100-meter finish line in a time of 9.79 seconds. You remember that, right? I certainly do. But days later, Ben Johnson was stripped of his medal after failing a drug test. We all remember that as well. His remarkable rise and fall from stardom is the focus of Mary Ormsby's new book called World's Fastest Man, The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson. She is joining us in studio this morning. Well, that takes me back. I personally cannot believe it's been 36 years.
I know. It seems like it was yesterday for a lot of Canadians.
It really does. And I want you to set the scene for us, Mary. Okay, so you're in Seoul covering the Olympics for the Toronto Star. Ben Johnson wins gold. We all went wild as Canadians. And then, days later, you're woken up in the middle of the night with the news that he has failed the drug test. What did you think and what did you do next?
It was about 4 o'clock in the morning in Seoul, and we were completely shocked. I didn't quite believe it at that time, but we were told, go find Ben Johnson. So we're all running out in darkness, trying to get to the hotel, the airport, Athletes Village, wherever he might have been. But he was already on his way to Toronto through New York. So we were left behind and just trying to pick up the pieces and trying to figure out what happened. This was like the worst case scenario
Really was.
For the Olympics and for Canadians too.
What were the conversations like between journalists at that point?
Well, at some point, international journalists would say to us, why didn't you know this? Why weren't you up on this? Didn't you have any idea the rumors were around for like a year or so? And we're like, well, I guess we fell down on the job.
But here's the thing, though. When you look at the context of when all of this was happening, it was obviously a shock for all of us that Ben Johnson was doping, but he was not the only one, right? I mean, in your book, you quote an athlete who says this about the 80s. They were, quote, the Wild West when it came to steroid use. Coaches were encouraging athletes to use it because everybody was doing that. Was that factually true?
It's obviously it's anecdotal because there wasn't a lot of testing the way we know it now in the 1980s, and they weren't testing randomly as they do now. It was only on competition days. So athletes who were on performance-enhancing drugs knew when to get off them to have that clearance time. And by the time Ben rolled around to Seoul, he'd been using it for about 7, 8 years. So he was a relatively sophisticated user of these illegal drugs, and he wasn't the only one. It was rampant in the sport of track and field, and across other sports as well. So it was quite the heyday because there weren't a lot of controls, compliance, or enforcement.
Yeah. I mean, we know that he initially denied that he had taken the steroids. He even went as far to say that he was sabotaged. Now, you've stayed in contact with Ben since then. What were those weeks and months like for him after the Olympics? Did he feel like he was being targeted unfairly?
He's always felt he's been targeted unfairly, but in that time frame, it was really a rough spot for him because there was quite a racist backlash as well, because people couldn't believe what had happened, and he was banned for life at the time by our sports minister, Jean Charest, which was the rule, but it all happened so quickly. He had this elation and this devastation, and then he's banned for life, and nobody knew what to think. So he felt trapped in his home, and he felt trapped until he actually, spoke on a witness stand in what was called the Dublin Inquiry, right? We had a royal commission that looked into all the stuff in Seoul and all the circumstances, and all the subpoenaed athletes had to tell the truth, and he was one of them.
In telling the truth at that point. We are months away from the next Summer Olympics, Mary, so I have to ask, I mean, it was just, 10 years ago that the Sochi Olympics were embroiled in their own doping scandal. What do things look like now in 2024?
In many ways, nothing has changed in 36 years. Athletes are still doping. Governments now are assisting. You mentioned Sochi. Tests are being hidden. Right now, there's a crisis with the anti-doping movement because there's 23 Chinese swimmers' tests that have embroiled them in a big scandal going into the Olympics. So there's a lot of questions about trust in the system and what can you trust when you see athletes out there performing. Are they clean or are they not?
Conversation that continues, as you say, 36 years later. The book is fantastic. Mary, thank you for being here today. The book is called World's Fastest Man, The Incredible Life of Ben Johnson.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.